Hello, the music is quite loud. Can't hear you.
In order to more efficiently manage any questions you may have, for today's session, we will be using a program called Slido.
The music is still on.
The link for the Slido is being inserted in the Zoom chat now. If you go back to my screen, I will give you a run-through on how you can use Slido. If you want to submit a question, simply type it in the question field at the top of the screen. And if you want your name to show, type it in the name field directly below before submitting your question. If you prefer to remain anonymous, leave the name field blank. At the end of the presentation,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
You're mute.
thumbs up icon to the right of the screen, and the question will be prioritized. Also, if you have any technical Zoom problem, please send a direct private message to me, ASQ Volunteer Davy, and in the Zoom chat so we can assist you. I will now hand over this to the session's moderator, Santosh.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon where you are around the globe. This is Santosh from ASQ Leadership Team. A warm welcome to all of you. I have the pleasure to introduce our speaker, Zahid Mubarik, today, who is speaking to us from Pakistan. It is already past midnight today. Thank you very much, Zahid. Zahid is a global expert in human capital measurement metrics. And quality folks, we love metrics. He introduced global diversity and inclusion benchmarks standards in Pakistan. Zahid served as global convener of ISO TC 260 HR metric standards working group. During his leadership, ISO published 2 global HR standards, including quality of hire and impact of hire. I think they are very powerful. He is currently the CEO, HR Metrics, and Chair Standards Committee, Pakistan. Now, some fun fact about Zahid. Due to his number-centric approach, he's very good in numbers, of course. People think he's from the finance. He's got a CPA or something, which he is not. He joined the HR as he felt that he is not good in numbers until he discovered later that numbers is his strongest skill. The topic today is using HR data standards to create sustainable value for enterprise, ISO 30414. The presentation will help us to assess the relationship between the HR data, accessibility, and transparency, as well as the internal and external understanding and assessment of organizations' human capital capabilities and performance. Evaluating the impacts of HR data analytics on the improvement of HR processes, as well as gaining a better understanding of financial and non-financial returns. Over to you, Zahid.
Thank you, Santosh. First, let me display my presentation and let me know that, can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So first of all, I'm grateful to you, the organizing team, and everyone for making it convenient to be here. It's as Santosh already mentioned, it's a midnight here in Pakistan. So please don't mind if during the presentation I go to sleep. I'll try not to do that. Okay, so the topic is quite interesting, and that is creating sustainable value for the enterprise by using the HR data standards. And it's really a great honor to speak in this conference, 2020 Western Canada Quality and Business Excellence Conference, where the theme is Rethink Opportunities United in Change. I think Santosh has already introduced me, so I would not like to go in more details. So very briefly, that data analytics is something that I really love doing it. So apart from that, I also had the opportunity to introduce the SHRM competency standard, that's SHRM certification in Pakistan, and the Center for Global Inclusion, US, which is also developed its own standard, the Global Diversity and Inclusion Benchmarks. I'm on their board of directors as well. While I was designing the overall presentations for having a conversation during this time period, I just look at some of the keywords that I thought are very important to keep in mind, because I understand that not all the participants of this conference are the HR people, but of course, each one of you is a people manager. So I designed this overall talk in such a way that it's quite relevant, and it really helps you in improving the business excellence and ensuring the quality. These kind of conferences provide a great opportunity to rethink. And as somebody said, that I cannot change you, but I can make you think. So it's a great, I think, opportunity for everyone just to relook at the existing way of doing things and just also see the challenges and the opportunities around and be more united to fight the challenges. On one hand, we are interested to discuss the opportunities, but I would like to take a start with some of the challenges that the world is facing, and each one of us is being affected. On your screen, you can see the situation, which is not very encouraging in terms of the economic outlook. This is a selection of some of the leading countries in the world, how their economies are suffering. And of course, it's not just at the country level, but also this is impacting the organization. And each and every individual is being affected. The jobs loss is there. The organization economic output is reducing. But despite these challenges, you would be, I think, aware of it, that there are some of the countries, some of the organizations who are still prospering. They continue to prosper. And through this dialogue, through this presentation, I want to throw light on some of the important aspects of the quality that we have to identify, because that's a clear shift from what has been happening previously and what is happening right now. This is a glimpse from the Financial Times, talking about some of the companies and companies like the Unilever, the Engie, who are continuing to grow, and some of the companies like the Boeing asking for the line of credit. So there's a complete food for thought for each one of us, that in this complete chaotic situations, what are those factors? What are those things which are fundamentally changing, because of which some of the companies, despite in the middle of the crisis, when the economies were hitting the bottom, they just picked up their growth, and they continue to grow. So this is just the overall the background, and to understand the complete phenomena of this, ensuring the quality and the business excellence, we have to, maybe take a broader look of what is happening all around in terms of the economic performance. First, number one, at the broader level, the thing is your global economy. So how this is shifting. You would see on this slide that the economy is completely transforming. So I understand that as a quality professional, we are more focused on the production than we are more focused on the manufacturing. But now we have to keep in mind that the economy is shifting from production to the service sector. That means that 1/3 of the global economy is now in the production, the rest all is the service. And at least there are 30 countries in the world where the service economy is in the about 80%. So this is one of the key factors that we have to keep in mind. And the key challenge that the organization is facing is how to remain relevant, how to sustain, and what are those things which they need to do in order to ensure their sustainability. If you have a look at the 500 Fortune companies and try to draw a comparison between what has been happening 20 years ago and just now, you would find that in top 10 companies, except for only 2 companies, rest everything has changed. That means that whatever is happening right now may not be relevant tomorrow. So for that matter, it's very, very important for each one of us to have a relook. And I'm really happy with the theme of this conference, that to create a rethinking, a fundamental shift in our approach. And what could be that shift? That's a $1 billion question. Because whatever that I have shown you till now are just the symptoms, but symptoms do not work. We have to get to the bottom of the problem. And here is that basically a gold mine information. This is basically an information which is derived from a company called Tomo Ocean in the United States. And this company, what they do is that they look at the composition of the 500 Fortune companies in terms of their net value, their net worth. And the summary that you have on your screen, that gives you a broader picture that what was happening 45 years ago and what is happening right now. Now, those of you who are familiar with this terminology, tangible and intangible, though they are being used very frequently, but from the accountant, from the finance perspective, something which is clearly defined, which has it's a strong felt presence, like the plant, equipment, cash, real estate, that is some called the tangible, and something which is just cannot be seen, but can be felt, like your brand, your goodwill, your patents, and above all, your human capital. So the intangibles, which was less than 17% 45 years ago, now where they have reached, they've gone to 90%. So as a quality professional, for us, it's very important to see that from where the value to the business, the value, the creation, how this can be enhanced, and where we need to shift our focus. So this slide refers us to one of the clear fact that since human capital is the one of the, you can say, takes the lion's share of, a major share of the organization spending. I think in the companies, Fortune 500 Fortune companies, nearly 70% of the organization overall spending goes to the workforce. Even if I talk about my own country, particularly the banking sector, I think nearly 67, 68% of the cost goes to the HR. Whether you call it a cost or an investment or whatever, that is something secondary, but I'm talking about the real financial value. So from a shareholder perspective, we have to wear the hat of the shareholder, and we have to think that how we can make sure that our company does stay relevant, and then they excel in what they do, and they survive. In an interesting survey, I think this survey was conducted by Development Dimension International, and they took place before the COVID situation. In this survey, they asked the CEOs that what are the top 10 factors which really threaten, which you think that it's a risk to the organization's sustainability and risk to the business continuity. And they listed some of the key factors like the global recession, the income inequality, the technological issue, the political uncertainty, but the findings were really unexpected and interesting. The CEOs found that the top 2 challenges that really threaten the sustainability of the companies are the people challenges. That means that as a people manager or any of the stakeholder in the organization, we have to consider that the reality that unless our people management in the organization is not in order, no amount of the other focus on the quality, maybe on the tangible things, is not really going to work for the organization. So this is an extract from the most recent article by the Harvard Law School, which basically reinforces the current theme you must have heard, the ESG. environment, social, and governance. It basically reinforces the company and asks them to follow this theme in order to stay sustainable. And this article emphasizes on the S aspect. It says that unless the organizations are not able to put their S, the social aspect, in order. Now, you would have heard every organization says people are our most valuable assets. This is the common terminology, common language, which I have heard many times. But you would agree with me that this is just a lip service. It's more of a sentiment. The actual, if you dig deeper into this phenomena, the social capital, the capital is a financial term. And according to its definition, something which has got a payback for the organization, something which has got a cash inflow for the organization, where you can demonstrate that whatever you're spending over there is being rewarded, it is being returned to the shareholders. So that can be called capital. And if you do not have that measurable framework, it's just a sentiment or the narrative. So from that point of view, I want to refer you to an interesting model of the quality, because as Santosh said, that quality people, they love metrics. So before talking about implementing the quality in the people management, I just want to refer you to some of the normal examples in our practical life that we see that, for example, if you're offering a service to a customer, supposedly you are in a banking sector and you offer loans or the credit to your customer, or you open accounts, any of the service you offer, basically there are different dimensions to, with the help of which you can determine the performance of that product or the service. For example, as I said, you're offering loans, so you would like to see that how many loans have been offered, what's the cost of acquisition of funds, how much time does it take to process a loan, what's the quality of the documentation that you make sure before you disbursing a loan, and then how those loans are performing. Are the people becoming your referral clients? And finally, based on these 5 factors, you are able to determine that is it a profitable or non-profitable proposition. And you can only stay sustainable if it is a profitable business. Similarly, for example, you go to any other sector, you go to the oil and gas. So you would like to know that how many number of the barrels are produced, what's the cost, what's the time to produce, what is the amount of sulfur in the petroleum products, and whether your customers are being satisfied or not, and what is the net impact. You go to any telecom sector, you'll find a similar model. So regardless of any of the sector, you would find that any customer service or any quality model basically follows the 5 dimensions: volume, cost, time, quality, user satisfaction. And based on these 5 factors, you are able to determine the financial impact. So technically, you basically combine all these factors into 3 buckets: efficiency, effectiveness, and the outcome. And basically, these buckets were developed by a gentleman who, first of all, talked about the quality in HR in 1970. He's still alive, and I wish for the longevity of his life. His name is Jack Fizzens. He has written plenty of books. One of them is the ROI of the HR. In that, he says that it's very important for the organization to treat people as an asset, and they should have the real mechanism to look at whether is a real asset in the real terms or not. And for the people management, it's very important for the stakeholders to look beyond just an activity. For example, you're looking at the employee engagement. So employee engagement, as an HR professional, we may be very much interested in how many number of the people have been engaged. It's nice. But then the CEOs would be interested that what is the impact on the organization? How does it reduce the accidents? Line managers would be interested that how the employee engagement improves the retention in the organization. How does it contribute to the business productivity? So that means that it's called for some of the radical shift in our thinking. Now, here I have a small poll, and I want to understand, I want to get your opinion on this, that supposedly you wear 2 different kind of hats. In one situation, you are the CEO of the company, and you come across some of the metrics that I already talked about. For example, you're hiring people for any of the project, so you have loads of things to measure. For example, number of people hired, cost per hire, time to hire, new hire, retention, the performance of the new hire, and ROI of the hire. In the other situation, you are the HR manager and you have the option to calculate, and you are calculating these metrics. So wear two different hats, and I would request you to give exactly your opinion that how would you like to behave in the situation one or in the situation one and situation two. Keep in mind in the situation one, how would you like to behave? But in the situation two, if you are an HR professional, or even if you're not an HR professional, as a quality professional, how do you see your HR professionals behaving? Where do they focus normally? So I would request you to please attempt this poll, and I would like to see the overall results of the poll, and we can have a short discussion around that also. So can you attempt this poll?
We'll give them 20 seconds.
Now, I'm repeating one thing, that in question 2, do not focus on the should part of it. Tell us what are the things that are being normally measured. Wherein the question 1 is more about the should, the question 2 is not about the should, 2 is about the practical situation.
I'm closing the poll in 10 seconds.
I hope everyone is attempting.
24 have answered out of 43 attendees.
Excellent. I request everyone, please.
Five more seconds. 26 have answered out of 43.
Okay. So can you show the results?
All right.
Excellent, thank you. So in the question 1, the participants say that CEO would be more interested in the ROI. And in the second thing, you said that new hire performance. Now see, although there's not much of variation in the two questions, but still you see some kind of variation. That in a sense that as a CEO or the shareholder or the CFO, you're more interested in the return. But as an HR professional, you would see that there's I would say, least amount of focus on the return, that's the ROI. And there's focus on some of the metrics, which in actual terms, as I said, the efficiency or the effectiveness metrics. So the efficiency is something fundamental. And then based on the efficiency, you go to the effectiveness, and you based on the effectiveness, you achieve the ROI. Thank you so much. You can close this poll. So it's not that which is important or which is unimportant, which is more important. So you can achieve ROI when you have the effectiveness in your organization. When you can achieve the effectiveness, you have the efficiency in your organization. Now this, based on this kind of understanding, there has been a thought within the HR that how you can make the HR more outcome oriented, how you can make the HR more focused on the meeting the expectation of the stakeholders. So for that matter, I think in 2010, ISO started a project on the HR standards. And otherwise, these standards are, I think, commonly known in the manufacturing sectors since a long time. But in 2011, this process of the standard started, and it's basically the aim was to develop some of the basic guidelines or something, a characteristic that can be used consistently to ensure that material products and the processes are fit for their purpose. And like any other standards, basically standards are driven by the World Trade Organization, because they are interested that any company which wants to promote its product into the international market, they should use the standard because they provide access to the new market, they provide economy of scales, and the cost saving involve customer satisfaction, market share, and the other environmental benefits. So in 2011, the ISO formed a committee which was called TC 260. There are almost 11 countries which were originally part of this process. And it last almost 10 years, we had a series of conversations in the different parts of the world, including the US, UK, the Germany, Australia, Indonesia, Netherlands, Singapore, Ireland, and many other countries also. So the purpose was to arrive at something which is more it takes care of the needs of the stakeholders. And overall, by the way, currently the composition of TC260, there are 30 countries in it who are participating. The 20 countries are the observers. We have been able to develop 13 standards and 21 are in progress. And you can call the family of the standards. Some of the standards are the process standards, some of them the measurement standards, some of them the administrative standards. I don't want to go into more detail because the time is limited. I just want to focus on the quality standard or quality of the data standard, because that is something I would call the king of you can say the head of the all standards. And that's called the ISO 30414 guideline for internal and external human capital reporting. Why this standard is, I would consider the most important, because of the reason that this is now time for the stakeholders engagement. And in the stakeholders engagement, it's very important that HR, as an organization, we have to get into a framework of being measurement centric, outcome focused, more evidence based, and our focus has to be on all the stakeholders. For example, your primary stakeholder is your shareholders, so we need to think about the ROI. We need to think about the productivity. You have the board of directors who are interested in the succession planning, but then just the policy on the succession planning is not going to be helpful. We need to use the languages of numbers and ratios. So for example, if you are able to tell them what is your succession readiness ratio and how much is the investment in the training is going on, that investment would be justified when we have a clear answer in terms of the readiness of the people to resume or to continue with the business. Similarly, as a regulator, the regulators are normally interested in the compliance. As a line manager, they are interested in the more skills and capabilities and the performance of the new hire and the retention of the new hire. So without going into more details about it, what I'm trying to say is that as a quality professional, if we really want to grow our organization, we want to have a business excellence, we have to think of getting into this framework that whatever we want to do, it should be in the numerical terms, it should be in the evidence-based terms, and it should be supported based on the data, because in the absence of the data, the HR is all about a narrative. So the interesting development at this point of time is that it is coinciding with the development of the standards that in the US last year, a group of investors whose net worth was more than $3 trillion, they requested Securities and Exchange Commission to have a kind of disclosure for the companies, because as I said earlier, that more than 90% of now worth of the company lies in the intangibles. So they cannot just rely on the narratives of the story. They want to have a clear information based on which they can make financial decisions. And the interesting thing is that almost 2 to 3 months ago, the Securities and Exchange Commission US was able to develop regulations. In fact, it's an old regulation, SK disclosure, but they modified it by making it mandatory for the companies to have the kind of disclosure, including the human capital. So now for the US listed companies, for their public interest company, the human capital disclosure is not an option, it is something mandatory. And the rule has already been published. So it's not that something happening within the United States. The European Union is also interested in the disclosure of the intangibles. Within the UK, I think there's already regulations on the disclosing the employee engagement and the salary aspects of the workforce, and particularly the top management. Similarly, few influential bodies like the Sustainability Accounting Standards Boards and few bodies in the UK. So all these global environments now favor the evidence-based management, the data-centric approach. Even the most recent World Economic Forum, it also had a very favorable view about the data quality standards. And this is because of the fact that unless we do not have a measurable framework, unless we do not have the number-centric approach, unless we do not look at the people management from the outer inner perspective, so it would be very, very hard for the organization, very difficult for the organization to not only obtain money for spending on the people, but just to justify. And as somebody said, that whatever gets measured gets done well, and whatever gets done well gets rewarded. So in that context, this is a data quality standard, basically, which favors everyone, all the stakeholders, the regulators, the shareholders, the line managers, the employees, even the customers, the public, because it's more inclusive in the overall approach. And the good thing is that the finance circles, because I feel that financial people, they are at the helm of affairs in the organizations, they have seen it very favorably, and they've written plenty of articles. One of the recent article in which they also write that probably now it's time for the finance people to take charge of the human capital disclosure standard, for the reason that it's a powerhouse. And I tell you that whosoever is able to control this powerhouse will have a more influence in the organization. So we are
Last 2 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm just in the process of concluding. So what we are doing is that, I mean, from my company platform, we help out the companies in, finding an approach where they can, do a kind of audit in their organizations if they want to train their people, or if they want to have a technology solution. By the way, we do not offer any technology, but we have the partner within the United States. And then within the company, we also created some kind of recognition framework to encourage those companies who use the data standards. And overall, the HR metrics, which I'm leading now, this offers a few other solutions as well, other than the data analytics, the diversity and inclusion. And as I said in the beginning, we also offer the SHAM certification in Pakistan. So this is what I think it was an important development. And as a quality professionals, it's very important to stay ahead of all these kind of developments. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. I am open to questions, and these are my contact details on my screens. If you wish to contact me with any further questions, or you want to stay in contact, so feel free to stay in touch. That's all, and nothing else from my side. I am also grateful to the sponsors and organizers for this wonderful conference and this opportunity. So feel free to ask anything, or if you have any comment or the question, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Zahid. I think we never knew that HR has so many standards and so many metrics. So let's get into the questions. We have few questions already. So my first question is from, what are the skills that the next gen leaders must have?
Next generation leaders, yeah.
So what are the skills that they must have? This is a question.
I think one of the key skills for the next generation leader is to, their ability to change themselves, right? So agility, their mindset, to stay sensitive to what is happening all around, challenge themselves. So that's, I think, the first and the foremost thing. Second thing, of course, everybody can have its own opinion on this, but there are certain already, certain work has been done on this regard. The critical evaluation. Particularly, I'm talking with reference to the people management perspective, because as a quality professional, so for example, if you're looking at the performance of the cell phone, you'll always find certain parameter to decide that what's its quality. Usually when we talk about the quality on the people side, there are a lot of gut feelings. I think so, So in order to overcome that thing, how you can promote the evidence-based management, how you can promote the critical thinking, and with the help of critical thinking, you're able to reflect and you're able to get a cross perspective on that front. So I think there can be a long list of the skills which are important, but out of these, the two, the agility of the mindset and your critical evaluation, I think is that the key skills that can be very helpful to you to stay current in the market.
Yeah, thank you very much, because a big question, it takes a lot of effort, but you have summarized quite well. The next question is, it says from Abjal, on slide 14, is it time now to update the model and include inclusion and diversity as one of the dimensions?
All right. So I think since I went through it very quickly, by the way, I can show I can send my presentation is otherwise available. Diversity and inclusion is already as one of the dimensions, because this ISO 30414 contains 11 different areas, and within 11 areas, there are 58 metrics. So diversity and inclusion is one of them. And even within the diversity and inclusion, there are certain basic parameters like the gender, disability, age. And then since the standard talks about the bare minimum requirement, the organization can always go beyond that. For example, if you want to focus on the transgender, no one stops you, but as a standard, it does lay down the requirement, and it is clearly identified in 30414 that diversity and inclusion is one of the metrics which is identified over there.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, can you please give some examples of cost per hire value for organizations which treat employees like assets?
Okay. So as I said in the beginning that uh, if you are trying to analyze some information, there are certain bits of information that we have to gather. So in the first instance, you have a data. And when you plot two data in the form of a numerator and a denominator, it gives you a metric. But a single metric doesn't give you an insight. For example, how many people you have hired, that's a one bit of information. Then the cost per hire. In the cost per hire, you divide the total cost by the total number, but it will just reflect the cost. It doesn't reflect the value. For the value, you have to consider, look at the quality parameter. For example, if I'm buying a cell phone and if I look at the cost is not going to tell me the value. For that matter, I have to look at the value added attributes that I expect. So when you use this analytics approach, in which you use the volume, you look at the time, the cost, the quality, the user satisfaction, and see everything in entirety, then it makes the analytics, and with the help of it, you are in a better position to identify or make a decision about something, that was it a really value-added service or not. Otherwise, they're just the one odd metric. With the help of the cost, you're not able to determine the quality of something.
Okay, thank you. What is your view of annual performance reviews? A time to collect data? The question I'll repeat. What is your view of annual performance reviews?
All right. My personal view about the annual performance review, because last time I was invited as a speaker and I had a talk on the result-based KPIs in the Las Vegas. And by the way, that was the highly attended conference in the world, because more than 25,000 professionals from the 90 countries attended that conference in Las Vegas. And my topic of conversation was result-based KPI. That's also one of my strong areas. The thing is that time of the annual, even the quarter, even the 6 monthly performance review is gone. I feel that performance is now just like a scoreboard on the board on the cricket. You hit a 6 and it should be reflected over there. So your performance management system should be more, it should be capturing something which is more live, which is more dynamic. And it not just captures the information, it's more responsive to create opportunity for the dialogue. Because the aim is not just to evaluate somebody, aim is to provide an opportunity for development for somebody. So on one hand, you are in a position to tell somebody whether somebody is doing well or doing not well. Second thing which is important is to help that person, how the person can improve the performance and meet the benchmark. So it has to be more dynamic, more time sensitive, I would say real time, so that it gives a early alert to somebody rather than waiting for the year end to come to know where do you stand.
Thank you very much. The days of annual reviews are gone now. So,
true.
Next question is, could you please elaborate more about how to rethink the social aspect after COVID?
I think social aspect of the after COVID has been highlighted. And it's really been identified that is the critical. But what I'm trying to emphasize in this process is that it's the reality. Like the accounting people say that finance is the concept and the cash is the reality. So we are operating in the capitalist economies, and we have to be conscious of the fact that as an investor, whenever they invest something, for them the social aspect is important. But then what is the payoff? Put yourself in the shoes of an investor and you find yourself that today you have got $1,000 or $100,000. Would you be looking at the social standing of the company or how that social standing delivers the earning per share for you? So with the help of the HR measurement model, you are able to translate that economic value, the human capital drive for the organization. And if you are able to do that well, then I think definitely you're doing a very good service to the social aspect. And if you're not able to demonstrate the economic value of the social aspect, then I think it's not going to be very sustainable.
Yep. Thank you. Very well said. The next question is ISO 30414 a mandatory standard needed certification? Are you anticipating that companies will need to be certified to this standard?
So far, it's not mandatory. It's the voluntary standards. But yes, the companies are basically developing their professionals. Even some of the professionals are forthcoming, they're developing themselves. Because it's just like a seatbelt. Whenever a seatbelt comes, in some of the areas mandatory, people don't have a choice, and they wear seatbelt because of the fear of the cop. But there are many who wear the seatbelt because of their own safety. So for the HR professional, the forward-looking people who know that the data is not just relevant to the HR, but for all the professionals is the future. So so far, although it's not mandatory, but I'm not sure about how the things happen in the future. But definitely it's in the interest of the HR, because you would have seen that I've shared in my presentation that something which triggered the US Security Exchange Commission was not the HR people. That investors with the $3 trillion investment went to the Security Exchange Commission. And they asked that we want something more measurable, something more tangible, where we are in a position to see the health of the company in a more tangible and transparent form. So I say that yes, we are offering the certification, and there are now certification of the organization also who want to, I think, get themselves certified on a voluntary mode. Otherwise, from a compliance perspective, now the organizations are under compulsion to disclose the data, and this is so far relevant to the US companies.
Thank you. I'm sure in future it will become mandatory later on, but not for now. True. The next question, what you have in the queue, is from Abjal. What do you think are the few key HR metrics for ESG framework reporting?
I think the ESG framework is something much broader, much broader, because as I said, I just talked about some of the metrics from the S perspective, which is a social aspect of it. Otherwise, since I'm not the expert on the environmental side, I'm not expert on the governance side, but obviously, if you look at the governance framework, normally we talk about the corporate governance, but the corporate governance is basically driven by the human governance. If the board is able to manage the conflict of interest, if board has a competency within itself, the corporate governance would automatically get strengthened. So from the social perspective, some of the key metric, for example, like you say that we all are interested in having a good employment brand. And we think that probably having a good advertisement in the newspaper is a good way of creating an employment brand. That's not the case. One of the good indicators in this metric, which is given over here, that how many successful people you have for any job opening that you have. That's a good, strong reflector of your brand. So you can call it a recruitment yield, or the number of the suitable applicants per job that is open. So with the help of it, you are able to really find an objective evidence of whether your company is a socially responsible company. Similarly, on the health and safety side, what is your accident rate? That also reflects the health and safety of your employees. Similarly, these days, you're seeing that people are operating from their homes, remote working environments are there, part-time workers are there, gig workers are there. So there's a complete clusters on the workforce availability. And that does not emphasize the 9-to-5 work, that they emphasize a mixture of the working options for the people who can contribute toward the well-being of the organization. So in that context, I would say there are plenty of metrics which emphasize the value of the social aspect in this 304.
Thank you, Zahid. The next question, the questions keep coming. So of course, we just have 1 minute left. So the question is, what do you think of developing quality culture from the HR perspective?
I think the quality framework is consistent because HR is a subordinate function. It follows the business. So whatever is important for the quality. So the quality follows two parameters. Number one, that when you are offering a service to the customer, it needs to meet certain specification. That's the first parameter of the quality. That means that before shipping your product to the customer, you ensure that you have certain specifications and you meet those specifications. Like I give you an example of the retention of the new hire. That's the first parameter. Similarly, when you give your product to the customer, then the user experience should tell that whether it has met the expectations or not. So in that case, for example, you use a cell phone or you take a water bottle and then you taste it and you come to know, then you have certain comments about something. Similarly, your performance index of the people, for the line managers for whom you hire, that single digit can give you a better indicator of it. So quality parameters is not something that we have to invent. We have to follow the same framework which is already in place for the manufacturing, for the productions, anything, and we just have to map up on the HR service or the human capital service that we provide to the organization.
Thank you. So if you permit, I have one question for you.
Absolutely.
So one is that in our balance sheets of the companies, we only track 65%, 70% the cost of the human capital. We never take into account our balance sheet, the value this human capital provides. What would be your comment?
Interesting. That is the driver. That is the driver, that whether the shareholder will be looking at the performance of by just cost. So by now, I think offline, I can send you a template which is available based on this report, that you are in a position to measure not just the cost, but the ROI. Because for you, it's not just the spending, but what's the net gain to the organization. So this standard puts emphasis, and that is something of more beauty to the shareholder, that they are able to see a real value in it. So the concept of the ROI is gradually coming into it. And so far, since the organizations are driven by the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, which is a compulsion for the organization, they do not have a choice. But the HR standards like coming gradually. For example, today something is happening in the USA, maybe tomorrow it comes to some other countries. By the way, so far, Security and Exchange Commission has not given any template, because I understand that things evolve. They just ask the organization to disclose something which is material. They use the word material for the business sustainability or for the business growth. And in that context, they emphasize that some of the key things which is happening in HR. But I'm sure, because usually we draw a comparison with the finance, and you understand that finance is a 500, accounting is a 500-year-old professions. So initially also when the profession started, the people used to call them a bean counters. They were not valued very much. It's over a period of time that it was realized how much it is important. And I'm sure that the pace at which the HR is growing, it's going to go much faster, because I showed you the article, even the finance people are now more inclined to use the human capital standard to look at the performance of the organization.
Okay, with that, we will close. Thank you. You have not fallen asleep, even if it's 1 o'clock in the night there. And I think everyone enjoyed this. HR metrics is definitely something which, so we will follow it up. We never knew there are so many HR standards. I'm sure some of the people have picked up the cue. With this, thank you, Zahid, and thank you, the audience, for being so wonderful. I hand over to Ascenda. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
once again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for attending this session, and we truly hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear your feedback. So if you can please take a few seconds to answer this brief poll. I will close the poll in 10 seconds. Again, thank you, everyone. For the next session, it's posted in the chat. We have session C with Mr. Yu Ali with the topic, How Grade 9 Science Can Help You Rethink Opportunities, or session D with Mr. Moatas El-Manshawi with the topic, Time to Change, Is it the Pandemic or is it Quality 4.0? Again, we wish you a good day and enjoy the rest of the conference. everyone. I'm closing the session in 10 seconds. Everyone, I'm closing the session in 10 seconds, so please join any of the 2 sessions. Links are available in the chat. Thank you.